Welcome to the Explainer. You know, there's this one role that so many companies get wrong, and it costs them big time. We're talking time, money, and morale. Yeah, we're diving into the Scrum Master role, and trust me, getting this right, it's a total game changer.
So let's get right to it. What is a Scrum Master actually doing all day? Seriously, it's a question that trips up a ton of organizations. And that confusion, it leads them right into some really common and really damaging traps. The answer, though, is way more interesting than you'd think. And here's a little spoiler, it has almost nothing to do with managing a schedule.
Okay, so when organizations try to be, efficient with the Scrum Master role, they almost always fall into one of two major traps. They look at the role and think, hey, we can take some shortcuts here. And look, on the surface, these ideas kind of make sense, right? Having a developer pull double duty, well, that feels like you're saving a headcount. And rotating the role seems fair, like everyone's chipping in. But let's pull back the curtain and see why these two practical solutions can, and often do, backfire in a pretty spectacular way.
All right, first up, the part-timer. This is probably the trap we see the most. You've got a developer or a tester, and they get asked to also be the team's Scrum Master, to save money. But is that really a good idea?
Well, according to the source material we're looking at, the answer is complicated. It's a big yes, but no. See, technically, the Scrum Guide doesn't say you can't do it. So sure, you can. But should you? The strong recommendation is a hard no.
And here's the real reason why this compromise is just so damaging. Think about it. A part-time Scrum Master is constantly pulled in two directions. They can't get that bird's-eye view of the team's dynamics because they're buried deep in the code. And then when the pressure's on and a deadline is looming, what do? They have to make an impossible choice, write code or coach the team. And almost every time, the urgent task, the coding, is going to win out over the important work of coaching. It's a total false economy.
Okay, so if having one person do it part-time is a bad idea, then what about sharing the load? That brings us right to the second big trap. Rotating the Scrum Master role. Passing the hat every single sprint?
And on this one, the source material is even more blunt. It's a resounding yes, but no. Again, technically, could you do it? I guess, but the advice against it is so much stronger. Honestly, rotating the role is just a recipe for failure.
And this really gets to the core of the issue. When you rotate the role, you don't really have a Scrum Master at all. See, when it's just a temporary duty, the role shrinks. It just becomes a list of admin tasks, right? Booking meetings, updating a board, that's it. All the real work, the coaching, the mentoring, the fostering of growth, the skills that take real time and dedication to develop, all of that is completely lost.
So, what happens when you don't have a real dedicated Scrum Master? Well, you risk creating something kind of terrifying in the Agile world. You're basically opening the door for an infection to set in.
And that infection has a name: Zombie Scrum. This is the ultimate price you pay for taking those shortcuts. You end up with a team that, on the surface, looks like it's doing Scrum. It might even smell like it's doing Scrum, but it's totally dead on the inside. It's just a shell.
A zombie Scrum team is just going through the motions. That's it. They do all the events, sure. They have their daily stand-ups, their retrospectives, but there's no heart, no life, no passion, no real impact. They aren't actually improving. And what happens then? Well, eventually, the stakeholders just lose interest because nothing of real value ever gets delivered. Okay, so we've seen the horror story of getting it wrong. Now let's flip the script. Let's really dig into what an effective, full-time Scrum Master is actually doing all day. And I think the answer is going to surprise you.
And this is where we hit the most counterintuitive truth about this role. The biggest pitfall for a Scrum Master is being too busy. I know, right? A great Scrum Master's value isn't measured by a packed calendar. In fact, it's the complete opposite. Their goal is to have as much empty space on their calendar as possible.
So what does their day look like? It all starts with an open and curious mind. They attend the daily Scrum, but as an observer. They're listening, not just to what's being said, but to what isn't being said. They're watching how the team interacts, and then, based on those observations, they decide what to do next. Maybe they need to coach someone, or teach a concept, or facilitate a difficult conversation. Or maybe
They do nothing. And I'm not kidding. Doing nothing is a perfect activity for a Scrum Master. Let's be really clear about this. That time spent just sitting with the team, listening, watching, that's their most valuable work.
It's in those quiet moments of observation that they spot the little things, the subtle dysfunctions, the conflicts that are just starting to brew, the opportunities for growth that a busy Scrum Master would blow right past.
So this power of observation, it's what allows them to fulfill the true purpose of the role. Because being a great Scrum Master isn't just about one team. It actually extends way beyond that. Their job is really about service on 3 different levels of the organization.
A great Scrum Master is what we call a servant leader. That means they lead by serving and enabling others. So who do they serve? First, the developers by coaching them towards self-organization. But they also serve the product owner, helping find techniques to manage the product backlog effectively. And this is huge. They serve the entire organization. They're the ones pushing for wider Scrum adoption and helping to change the very culture of the company so that agile teams can actually thrive.
I mean, this just shows you how complex the role really is. A Scrum Master isn't just one thing. They wear so many hats. They're a servant leader, a coach, a facilitator, a teacher, a mentor, a manager, an impediment remover, and a change agent. The real magic, the true skill of a great Scrum Master, is knowing which of these stances to take, which hat to wear, at any given moment to best help the team and the entire organization.
So all this leaves us with a really critical question you should ask about your own organization. Is your Scrum Master a busy administrator with a full calendar? Or are they a powerful change agent with an empty one? Are they just bogs down in tasks, or are they empowered to observe, to coach, and to drive real, meaningful change? Because the next time you see a Scrum Master quietly observing their team, just remember, you're not looking at someone doing nothing. You're watching the real work get done.